the Switch just celebrated its 8th year anniversary. That is still wild to me. I remember following all the NX news, and at the time, Breath of the Wild news. The talks about it being portable, going back to cartridges. I mean, Nintendo was in a dark place following the Wii U, and now they were going to cannibalize the only profitable part of the business. Of course, by that I mean destroying the DS family of handhelds that were doing so well for the company. All of this seemed very, very controversial 8 years ago. I remember going to spend a week hanging out with my cousin, and he told me, he said, man, if it's true, if you know, what we know now is the Switch, if it really does go back to cartridges, I think Nintendo's dead. And that, I mean, that was kind of a mood 8 years ago. Again, the Wii U had flopped. It was a commercial failure. They were moving on to the Switch as fast as they could. However, I still remember the reveal trailer, the kids playing in the car, and then we saw Skyrim was going to be on the Switch, and I just knew a star was born right before our eyes. That was 8 years ago. A lot has happened. Nintendo has reclaimed, in my opinion, its spot on top of the gaming hill. So let's look back at the last 8 years of the Switch, and let's look at the top 5 games on the console. Let me start by taking the air out of my own balloon here. This is predominantly, if not entirely, a first-party Nintendo list. Of course, the Switch has fantastic third-party support. Have I mentioned that the Switch has Skyrim on it? But where Nintendo has always excelled is the first-party titles, and the Switch is no different. My list is going to be starting with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I played Scarlet specifically. I can't find a general consensus on these games, so I don't know if it's controversial to be putting Scarlet and Violet in my top 5, but here we are. When Pokemon announced they were going fully 3D with Sword and Shield, my first thought was that there's going to be growing pains. And there was. People dunked all over Sword and Shield to no end and said they were going to be boycotting Pokemon games. It was a messy time, but I held out hope. Game Freak would get it right with Gen 9. Well, Legends Arceus, which could be on this list, it's a great game, I think was a step in the right direction, and we don't even really have to talk about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. But I'm giving the nod to Pokemon to Scarlet and Violet. I think they are great Pokemon games. Does it rival something like Pokemon Platinum? No, not quite. But it finally gave us a Pokemon game where the main objective wasn't just beat the 8 gyms and become the champion, which I have always wanted since Gen 3. We've had people in the Pokemon world that are professors, breeders, Pokemon contestants, Pokemon gym leaders. I've thought, why does Pokemon feel the need to shoehorn the main character into he has to go beat these 8 gyms and he has to become the champion? There's so much more to do in the world of Pokemon than just become the champion. Now, yes, that always needs to be a component of the story, but it doesn't have to be the only story. And yeah, there's things I like about Scarlet and Violet. There's things I don't like about it. I think Game Freak has outgrown the Switch, and I'm excited to see Pokemon ZA to see if they better optimize like cutscenes, because cutscenes are the worst part of Scarlet and Violet. But I'm also really interested to see where they go with Generation 10, because Game Freak loves install bases. They are notorious for putting their games on old consoles, all the way back to the handheld days. So when we move to the Switch 2, are they intentionally going to wait a year or two into the Switch 2's lifespan so that there's a bigger install base, or are they going to put Gen 10 on the Switch as well? Because if they do that, I think that game could have a hard time. But if they make the jump to Switch 2 with Gen 10, I think it'll be good. But for now, I really do like what they did overall with Scarlet and Violet, and I really hope Generation 10 just continues to be a step in the right direction, because Sword and Shield and Brilliant Diamond and Pearl have been low points for the Pokemon franchise. Number 4 is Super Mario Party. When I'm done fully exploring Mario Party on the Switch, Who knows? One of the other Mario Party games may crack my top 5, but as of today, it's Super Mario Party. It's the one my wife and I have played the most. I knew this number 4 spot was going to go to a multiplayer game. The Switch really harkens back to what I think is one of the pillars of Nintendo, and that is awesome multiplayer games. They've always been the best local multiplayer machine. Sure, with like the 360 and even the generation before with like Xbox and the PS2, those consoles have dominated the online multiplayer experience, but as far as sitting on the couch with your best friend or family member and playing a game, it has always been the Nintendo consoles. From the original Super Mario Kart to GoldenEye and the Mario Parties, Mario Kart, and Smash Brothers. Those were all games I was considering for this list. I ruled out Mario Kart 8 because I didn't want any ports or remakes. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, why not Super Smash Brothers then? And Super Smash Brothers is great. Okay, I have little brothers that are 9 and 10, 11. And for their birthday this year, they wanted to get all their brothers together to play Smash Brothers. The game is iconic. The game is great. But I game mostly with my wife. And what my wife wants to play is the Mario Party games. More than Mario Kart and more than Smash Brothers. My wife is a big Mario Party fan. When I got her into retro collecting, she said, okay, I'll do this, but only if we go get all the Mario Parties first. So one of our first subsets of retro collecting was getting all of the Mario Party games. So we're still playing through Mario Party Jamboree. So we'll see if that eventually supplants Super Mario Party. But here on this channel, we did a lot of Super Mario Party content. It has a soft spot in our heart. And, you know, it's another franchise where it was coming out of the dark ages. Mario Party, I can't remember if it was just 9 or if 8 did it as well. It might just have been 9 and then into 10. They put the players in, I don't know, together. It's really weird when you think about Mario Party. Mario Party 10 gets crapped on extensively, and as a Wii U defender, I don't think it's that bad. My only complaint with Mario Party 10 is I wish there was a game mode where you got to move independently of each other. If it had done that, I think Mario Party 10 would be remembered as a way better game. But as it stands, I get the complaints. But going into Super Mario Party, we did away with that. Everybody can move independently. There's a team mode. There's allies. Each character has their own unique dice, which I think is just fantastic. There's a lot of game modes, unlockable characters. It is a great time. My wife and I have really enjoyed Super Mario Party. It's probably the Switch game we've put the second most amount of time in. As a unit, it's the game we put the most amount of time in, but for me, it's probably the game I've played the second most. So don't get me wrong, we really, really enjoy Super Mario Party. Coming in at number 3 is Tears of the Kingdom. And I gotta admit, I don't know what the general consensus is. I see some people say Tears of the Kingdom is the best Zelda game ever. I see some people say Breath of the Wild is the best game ever. I knew when Tears of the Kingdom got released, it was gonna fall into that BioShock 2 territory where people complain it's just more of the same. BioShock 2 is incredible. I could speak on how it was underrated for years. How many people said, you know, what made BioShock 1 special was Rapture, so just revisiting it in BioShock 2 kind of took the air out of BioShock 2. But it did a lot of improvements for the BioShock series. Now, parlaying that over to Tears of the Kingdom, I get it if people think it's more of the same as Breath of the Wild. The map's not exactly the same, the story's not the same, the power-ups aren't the same. So for me, it is different enough. And I go back and forth on Breath of the Wild. I really do. One of my viewers always points out that Breath of the Wild is a modern-day recreation of the original Legend of Zelda, which I agree with in theory, but not so much in application. I do think the Switch has proved to be one of the best machines to play Zelda on, Do me a favor, guys. Leave a comment down below if you want a video where I dive into which console is the best for playing Zelda games. You've got Link's Awakening, Skyward Sword, Echoes of Wisdom, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, right? That's a great host of games. And the reason Tears of the Kingdom stands out to me, again, I'm not including remakes, even for something like Link's Awakening that's kind of different. And then Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword, to me, was really redeemable on the Switch. I really enjoyed my time with Skyward Sword. And I'm, a boomer Zelda fan, so I really enjoy the old Zelda games. But Tears of the Kingdom, man. I give Breath of the Wild a lot of crap, which means I have to inherently give Tears of the Kingdom some of the same crap. I just don't feel like side quests are worth it in the open world Zelda games. And one of the knocks, I guess, on old Zelda games is they don't really do side quests the way we think about them in other games. Like Majora's Mask has some good side quests because they have a million masks. And Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild just don't have anything equivalent to Mask that makes side quests fun to me. There's no heart pieces to do missions over. Like, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the shrines, but as far as exploring the worlds, it kind of feels like you're just looking for shrines. The outfits, I think, is a saving grace of the Zelda games. Like, sometimes exploring caves, doing side quests, finding chests can feel worth it if you get a cool outfit. Now, part of this is me. I don't like breakable weapons. I don't really care for cooking and collecting a bunch of ingredients needed for other aspects of the game just isn't something that appeals to me. I think it's all been overplayed, right? I feel like a lot of people considered Breath of the Wild this revolutionary titan for introducing breakable weapons and cooking, which I partly tease. Of course, it's because of the massive open world scale and everything like that. But what puts Tears of the Kingdom so high up for me in Zelda in general? I'm a guy who's like, okay, Ocarina of Time is the best Zelda game ever. Then I like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Minish Cap, Link Between Worlds. Those are, traditionally my favorite Zelda games. But what makes Tears of the Kingdom able to really rival almost any of those is, man, it gave me probably the greatest experience, the greatest moment in my Zelda playing history. And it's when you're doing the Wind Temple. Or not necessarily when you're doing the Wind Temple, but when you're scaling the sky, going through the clouds, getting to that Wind Temple. Oh my gosh, I remember just shooting Link up into the sky and thinking, this may be the best Zelda game ever made. That moment where you're ascending to the Wind Temple is just the coolest thing in any Zelda game ever. So, long-winded way to say that Zelda on the Switch is pretty awesome. Zelda has always been one of the main reasons to own a Nintendo console, from Legend of Zelda to Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time. The Switch here, it's no different. The Zelda games are some of the best reasons to own a Switch over the competitors. Coming in at number 2 is Kirby and the Forgotten Lands. Man, I could have just as easily given this game the number 1 spot. I love Kirby, even though traditionally, I'm not even a 2D platformer guy. Mostly in the 3D space here. I just can't help but smile when I'm playing as the Pink Puff. But you give me the same great Kirby feeling, but now it's a fully fledged 3D platformer, and I knew we had a 10 out of 10 game on our hands. And I'm not kidding. Kirby is a 10 out of 10 game for me. The gameplay is perfect, the power-ups are sick, the side missions are enjoyable, tons of collectibles, pretty decent replayability, upgrading abilities and finding Waddle Dees is a fun time killer. The controls are smooth, the worlds are vibrant, the game is just incredible. My one wish is to eventually get another 3D Kirby platformer on the Switch too. I'm not saying for him to completely abandon his 2D roots. I mean, so many great Kirby games are done in 2D. Planet Robobot, Triple Deluxe, Kirby 64, those are all 2D platformers, and I love them all. But his 3D platforming debut was phenomenal. And I do add platforming as a little qualifier there, because obviously we've seen him in 3D with Kirby Air Ride, even though that's a completely different style of game. But yeah, Kirby and the Forgotten Lands, it's so simple yet so beautiful. I mean, that's what's great about Kirby. It's just a really simple game. It's applicable to everybody. There's no barrier here. Kirby is just fantastic. I don't see a single reason anyone would not like it, outside of maybe just being too hardcore of a gamer, right? Like if you're playing Dark Souls and you go and play Kirby, maybe it's not your thing, but pretty much anybody else can fall in love with Kirby. So Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is just phenomenal. Easily 10 out of 10 for me. So what could top a 10 out of 10 Kirby game? I think it's probably obvious at that point. It's a 10 out of 10 Mario game. Super Mario Odyssey is my number one game. Was there ever a doubt? Probably not. Especially if you know me, 3D platformers are my favorite genre. So, I had to show restraint only putting 2 on the list, but of course they snag the 1 and 2 spot. And here's another game I remember the build up to extremely well. I was watching a lot of YouTubers who went out to E3 to play the new Donk City, and I knew the game was going to be great just from what I saw, even if at the time I didn't fully understand the Cappy gimmick. The first time you transform into that frog, though, I still didn't completely understand the magic that I was witnessing. The game has the best movement of almost any game I've played. The worlds are massive and colorful. Well, most of them anyway. With collectibles everywhere. Each kingdom feels unique and full of things to do. Guys, you gotta understand, I beat this game every day for like a month straight. Sometimes I'd beat it 2 or 3 times a day. Because I was speedrunning the game. And I got pretty decent at doing a glitchless Super Mario Odyssey run. I was around 2.5 hours when I was doing it daily. And, man, it's a magical game. I'll never forget unlocking Peach's castle. I gush a lot about a Hat in Time's mod support, but if you just strip away all the extracurricular elements of games like DLC, Ultimate Editions, and mod support, and you just look at what games are perfect as they are, I would say Super Mario Odyssey is on a very short list of my actual favorite game. Actual perfect games with no DLC, no added content, just here's the game. The same game at launch. It's, golly, guys, it is phenomenal. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said. I mean, like, ooh, real shocker putting Super Mario Odyssey at 1. I get it, but, the greatest travesty, the greatest sin of the Switch is that we didn't get a sequel. We didn't get DLC. And as we move into the Switch 2, I don't think it's going to be Super Mario Odyssey 2. I've said it before. If you're a 3D Mario game and you don't get a sequel on your console, you don't get a sequel. There's no sequel to Super Mario 64. There's no sequel to Sunshine. The only one that got a sequel was Galaxy, who got its sequel on the Wii. So in the coming weeks, months, whatever, however long it takes to get the new 3D Mario game, I don't think it's going to be Odyssey, which is such a shame. It's one of the best game worlds to just vibe in, man. It is phenomenal. So the Switch is an amazing console. It breathed life into so many old games. I mean, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door got a port, Metroid Prime, the BioShock Collection, Spyro Reignited Trilogy, Mario Kart 8, Borderlands. So many games and franchises have been ported. I mean, Resident Evil, Grand Theft Auto, Metal Gear Solid. Quality varies, sure, but the Switch just has such an extensive library that, I think I'll still be exploring this console for decades. I'm still scratching the surface of third-party games like Dragon Quest XI and Rune Factory and Hollow Knight. And then there's games I'd love to play that I completely miss, such as Astral Chains. It's a deep console that I love collecting for. Now, it is, the primary Nintendo console right now, so you don't get games going on sale ever outside of like Black Friday. So it's a little cost prohibitive to have a big Switch collection, but it's a fantastic console. And in 2 years, when we do our top 10 Switch games for 10 years, hopefully I have played more, explored more, and really dove into this library. So that's my call to you guys, is let me know, what are some Switch games I need to play, I need to test out. The thing about the Switch is it has a mind-blowing RPG library, and I'm not a big RPG guy, so some of the best games on the console aren't even in a genre that I play. A lot of you guys could probably go to bat for so many RPGs. I tried to not put remakes on this list, and like I said, the remakes are off the charts too. So it's an impressive library. It's probably the best Nintendo library. Of course, Sony and Microsoft have had consoles with very extensive libraries over the last 20 years. Really, you look at Nintendo, the GameCube had about 550, the N64 had short of 300, right? The Wii had an impressive library, but then the Wii U had nothing, So this was really Nintendo's first console to have just an astronomical library size, and it shows. I think the top end games, especially first party, are going to be pretty similar for a lot of people. You're going to see a lot of Breath of the Wild, a lot of Mario Odyssey, a lot of Mario Kart, and a lot of Smash Brothers, because those are just quality Nintendo titles. But let me know, once we get past the first party games, what are some of the best Switch games? I'd love to get your guys' thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate all you guys do for us, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.